So a little bit about myself. My name is Joe Wright. I serve as a student body president here at USC. I'm originally from a small town called Clover, South Carolina, right outside Charlotte, North Carolina. I was also student body president in my high school. I came to university as a business major, decided to go with finance and marketing with a minor in public relations. And I enjoy running and cooking and eating and hanging out with my friends. But I do have an extreme interest in politics. And I've decided, a lot of people question why don't you go into political science instead, why are you in finance? And I said, the world revolves around finances more so than political theory. And that was my decision of wanting to go into finance and marketing. When I came here as a freshman, I applied to be on freshman council, which is kind of like the stepping stone to the rest of student government. I actually got rejected, which is ironic. I applied again and got rejected again. So the third time I applied to be a part of Meredith Ross, who is the current serving student body president, to be in the position of government community relations. And in that position, I was the liaison between local, state, and national government to the student government here at USC. Also, my freshman year, I got involved in University Ambassadors, which was one of the most rewarding experiences I've ever been involved in. They serve as the tour guides here at the university, but you learn a lot about the history and where the university is founded, and kind of you learn about where the direction is going. You learn a whole lot more than a lot of people are exposed to, so that kind of built my foundation for my knowledge about USC. And as I progressed into my position in student government as government community relations, we looked at different ways to engage the community with the student body. So during that time was actually a 2010 election, so we had a lot of gubernatorial candidates, Nikki Haley, Vincent Shaheen, and we actually had the first ever Palmetto gubernatorial showcase where we invited the candidates for governor to come in and speak to students, and they did, and it was a really rewarding experience. So that created a great foundation for government relations there. I was also in charge of Congressional Advisory Board, and that group travels to DC every year to lobby for higher education on behalf of USC. My junior year, I became Secretary of Organizational Outreach, and I work with student organizations to help develop them more and learn how to communicate and be more of a functioning student organization. I also was elected to be President of University Ambassadors my junior year, so that's where I started to get even more into the leadership role. And then when I started to look at, what can I do my senior year, I immediately didn't go to being student body president. I looked at, where can I have the largest impact, where can I, have the most influence of people, and, I examined a lot of options, and I landed on student body president. When I came to USC, I had no idea that I would ever be in this position, nor did I ever think I could ever reach this position. And that was my next natural move to run for student body president. So I ran against 4 people, was elected in late February, inaugurated in March, and I've been serving ever since last March. When you become, especially student body president, you wear 3 hats. You wear the hat of a politician, the hat of a student, and the hat of an administrator. And you have to be able to juggle those hats and balance back and forth and go back and forth all the time. So it can be, it's sometimes stressful because you have to have certain knowledge that you can use in one area but not the other, and you have to know certain things about other things that help you progress things. And I wouldn't say my job is stressful. I just wish I had more time in a day to get things done. I love what I do. I take my job very seriously, and we've been able to accomplish a lot this year. And I think when looking at running for these positions, you really have to look at tangible results you can give to students, long-term and short-term. You should never promise on something you can't deliver. And you always have to look at, I'm a big person about finance, you always have to look at the financial analysis of things. So you can't promise someone, a new parking garage or free chicken fingers on Wednesdays. You have to look at, the financial outcome and input of everything too. So my advice to candidates running too, look at the tangible results, but also look at really what the student body wants. Don't necessarily look at the internal needs of the student government, but look at the external. Try to really get out there and talk to students, faculty, administration. And one of the biggest biggest piece of advice I can give to candidates is, if you do get elected, take the first few months and do relationship building. No one wants to work with you when you start walking into an office saying, I want this, I want that. You have to build a relationship with them. And when you ever do need something and you go to them, the more than likely are going to help you with that, reach your goal. Probably some of my favorite ones has been with the Board of Trustees. The Board of Trustees is a very unique position because they are the governing body of the university. They make all the decisions. They elect our president of our university. They come from all walks of life, from ambassadors to lawyers to businessmen to surgeons, and then they're just very unique people. They're all alumnus. or alumni of the university, and they care so much about the university, and they're not employed by the university, but they're elected by the General Assembly of South Carolina, so they're in a very unique position where they have to be elected by the General Assembly. And they just have such an interesting perspective of the university, and they're in charge of making all the decisions like tuition increase, capital projects, building a new Russell House, building a new health center, building the Strom Thurmond. So that's probably one of my favorite things I've done and some of the most interesting people I've met. So kind of going back to when you run for a position in student government, students care about three main things: food, athletics, and parking. And within my first month or two, I try to hit all three of those. So we got a new meal plan, and I work with dining to get the new flex meal plan, which is still developing. It's going to take a few years really to get implemented here on campus. So that's a big success. Students asked for more flexible options, and that's what we gave them, a bigger bang for their buck. The second one is parking. We work with parking to develop the shuttle system a little better. Like I said, it's hard to build a new parking garage on campus when we can't currently fill our parking garages on campus already. So we looked at the shuttle routes. So we developed some hot routes to get people from the more absolute parts of campus, say from Swearingen to Capstone or from the BA to the Coliseum, at a quicker rate, so it's more efficient and more user-friendly to students. With athletics, we got 2,000 more student tickets in the football stadium, and we're still working to develop the ticketing program where it'll be almost fine-tuned to a T in spring or fall of 2012. We also, with athletics, got a student section in the baseball stadium that's dedicated just to students, not on the hill, but actually seats. So that's some of our major accomplishments. Also the iPad checkout program, looking at academics. How can we be more progressive in the classroom when we look at e-textbooks? How can we make textbooks more affordable for students when the economy is so rough right now, especially on students and their families? Different things like that. So that's some of the top initiatives that we've accomplished. We also have a great speaker series coming this spring. A few people have already come through campus, but also engaging the student body about what current events are going on, how it affects them, different things like that. So with iPads, a lot of people are bringing tablets into the classroom, and one thing that a lot of companies and also a lot of universities are trying to navigate through are where e-textbooks really have a place at a university. No publishing company has really figured it out yet where it is, because you have the hard copy of a textbook, you have an e-book, and then you have something over here we don't really know yet, which is more like the Nook Study through Barnes & Noble, where it's more of an interactive book. It's not just a digital version of the book, but you have charts, videos, pictures, very much more interactive, that really I think is going to help that take off. So a lot of students, especially in our generation, we grew up with a hard copy, and we're not really sure what this is over here. We like it, but we don't really know how it's going to really affect us in the long term. So the reason we brought the iPads is so students can kind of test that water out before actually making the purchase, between $400 or $600 to actually buying a tablet. They can figure out, do I actually want this? Will it be beneficial to me in the classroom? How does it work? And they can check it out for 3 days. They can take it to class with them, work on projects. So it's a piece of technology that will help progress education. There was a statistic that went out in the Wall Street Journal this past week that said by 2020, 50% of all the books at universities will be on a tablet. And Apple's looking at to develop that further, and that's why we made the purchase towards iPads more so than, say, the Nook or the Kindle. So that's some of the reasons we looked at it. Also, the Thomas Cooper Library has a program called the Textbook Turnstile Program, and that was an initiative student government started about 6 or 7 years ago. And what that is if a class has over 100 people, they'll have that book for them in the library. So this helps our students who can't afford textbooks, or say if you have that class you only need the textbook 3 times. Eventually what I like to see is all the textbooks loaded onto these iPads, so you can go pick an iPad up and you have all the textbooks you need for them, so kind of reduce the cost for textbooks for students, but also teach them how to navigate through, whether it be an e-textbook or this area over here we don't fully understand yet about the more interactive textbook on a tablet. One thing I didn't touch on is the Carolina Cab, and I guess I could use this for this question, but the Carolina Cab, students love to go to our 5 Points area, and as long as they do it legally, we're okay with that. And one thing we look at is safety. And what can we do to really make sure our students' safety is ensured when they're trying to go to and from 5 Points? And we had the Caucus Caravan, which wasn't as successful because a lot of people weren't as familiar with public transportation, and they weren't really sure what it was. So we looked at what students use most when they go to and from 5 Points, and that was taxi cabs. And so the Carolina Cab came in online right when I came into office last March. And this has been a huge success with students. It's something that they were already using, but it's free to them. They pay $2 a semester in their activity fee, and they can use the taxi ride system, or the Safe Ride program, Thursday, Friday, or Saturday every weekend, except for home football games. So what I tell people is, they ask me, do you really want to sustain that financial cost? And you can't put a dollar amount on a student's life, if it ever was something to happen to one of our students, when you're looking at their safety. So I think that's been one of the most successful programs we've had here on campus. I think as the city grows, we'll grow that program. As we look at developing more restaurants and areas where students pursue their nightlife avenues, we'll look at possibly expanding into the Vista as our population grows here at the university. Not everyone will want to go down to 5 Points. We'll probably want to go to the Vista, so that's definitely look to exploring in the future in the next 2 or 3 years. One of the things that I think is interesting that we just had MLK Day this past Monday, and it takes a lot of courage to be in this position because you know what the students need, and you have to have the courage and be bold enough to put it out there with administration and say the Board of Trustees, because I'm the only student member on the Board of Trustees. I represent all 45,000 students in the USC system, so all 8 campuses on the board. And you have to have the courage to say the things that some people won't say but need to be said for the students. If there is a fee increase that won't benefit students in the long run, you have to stand up and say, no, this is not what we need. We need to put our money here towards academics, towards the student experience. And also communication. Communication is so important in today's society because, whether it be on Facebook or in person or over the phone or Skype, you have to be able to communicate efficiently with people in order to reach your goals. So those are probably the 2 biggest things I've learned. Looking to the future, hopefully, I think, obviously I want to go into business. I'm a business student, but hopefully I want to go into consulting, business consulting, because I think being president has almost been being like a consultant, because you come in for a year, you have a list of initiatives you want to accomplish, you kind of, audit the university, if you will, seeing where the university is, what the students want, and you have a year to deliver on it and make a long-term plan after you're gone. So you come in, you leave, and you give them hopefully a tangible, deliverable plan over the next, year to 5 years. Well, the things that are important to students, things that students should look at when it's coming to looking at candidates and looking who they're going to vote for in 2012 is, and this is a pulse across the nation, is job creation in the economy. If you look at our demographic, millennials, which is our generation, people between the ages of 18 and 32, we have the highest unemployment rate with any other demographic. And we're also the biggest job-seeking group of any other demographic too. We're graduating, whether it be in an MBA program or under their undergrad. And so we have to look at candidates, saying, who's going to actually sustain job creation, who's going to have a job for us when we actually graduate. Other things to look at is the debt limit, and also student loans. The student debt just surpassed the total credit card debt in the nation. I mean, that's over $1 trillion. It gets to a point where we have to look at, why do we have such high student loans? Is it the cost and structure of higher education? Can we make that lower? Can we make it more affordable for students? What is the role of the national government in when it comes to higher education and public education, say in the state of South Carolina? What's their role? And every candidate has a different view on it. And also when you look at taxes, I think a lot of people, students sometimes forget about taxes. Eventually we're going to have to start paying income tax. And if students have had internships or jobs, taxes are very frustrating. So you have to look at who has the best tax code, because eventually that's going to be your future. But I think students should examine every part of a candidate's platform, whether it be from taxes to social issues, anything. They're all very relevant to what's our future is tomorrow, because eventually our parents are not going to be, and our grandparents are not going to be in charge of the country. We are, and we want to be able to take a country that's navigable and still the #1 country in the world. I think, sometimes it's hard for students to see the big picture. What is my role here at the university? Why should I get involved? Why, what's my place here in the state of South Carolina, even though I might be out-of-state students? And when you come to USC and a place of higher education, your job is here to get an education. And what will that education do? It'll benefit society and benefit the world around you. And we also have to make sure that the people after us who come future Gamecocks, that education is just as good that was for us as it is for them. An interesting statistic, the United States rates, probably I think the 20th when it comes to education. And if we were, say, where Korea or Finland was, our GDP would be actually 6 to 12% higher. So we have to look, where is our country moving when it comes to education? And we as students have to have a voice in saying this is where we want our education system to go. So I think, looking at the bigger picture, we really do matter. We just don't go to classes every day, that we need to get involved and make our world better through education, because education develops the economy, and it has a very much a outstanding reach.